This is Eric Mann, and this is an upload from his radio show in Los Angeles, Voices from the Frontlines, your movement building show. Eric has been building movements since the 1960s, and I've been building a bowel movement for about 2 days, and I'm going to release it all over this dinosaur.
I'm a very politically developed person. I'm a pro-communist, anti-imperialist, pan-Africanist, third worldist, revolutionary. That's sort of who I am.
Shut the fuck up, Eric, you commie bitch. Look, Eric's been around for a long time, right? He started off with the Students for a Democratic Society. You know, democratic. That's like a dog whistle for communists. They never want to come out and say they're communists. They always say, "Oh, no, I'm a democratic socialist." It's not communism. It's socialism. What's the matter, moron? You don't know the difference between socialism and communism? Everything is communism to you people. But Mann has always been a communist, you see. Mann was elected to National Committee in '68, and he told the Associated Press that he believed in continuous resistance against institutions and policies of corporate capitalism. When SDS splintered into 3 groups in 1969, Mann was a leader of the Weatherman, and he adopted the revolutionary youth movement's belief that direct action should be used as a tactic to dismantle the group's perceived power centers of U.S. imperialism. Direct action is also a commie dog whistle. It means terrorism. So the next year, in September of '69, Mann and 20 others were arrested for participation in direct action against the Harvard Center for International Affairs. The following month, he was involved in a direct action where 2 bullets were fired through a window of a police headquarters. Mann surrendered to the police on 4 counts stemming from the incident: conspiracy to commit murder, assault with the intent to commit murder, promotion of anarchy, and threatening. Mann was sentenced to 2 years in prison, for which he spent 18 months and 40 days in solitary confinement. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's not a lot of time for all those charges, but it turns out in '75, the Senate Committee on the Judiciary released a document that said that in the month following his arrest, he did a little bit of snitching. I guess while he was awaiting his sentence on those charges, he attended the Weatherman's War Council in Flint, Michigan. And he did a little informing. He snitched on a guy wearing a priest outfit and handing out sticks of dynamite to all the other radical communists. That's one way to get your sentence reduced. I imagine if the rest of the Weathermen had known about that before it was released in '75, they probably would have murdered this dude, and the world would have been a better place for it. Because Mann's been hard at work ever since. He's developed all kinds of strategies that you see the left using today. One of them he calls formulations that I like to call framing or straw manning, or stupid communist fucking mind games. It's where you use a stupid little play on words to frame your opponent as being evil or racist or some dumb shit like that. He was inspired in 1968 when at Columbia they were protesting a building of a gym, and so they called it the Jim Crow, like GYM Crow, you know? Because then if you came out and said, "Hey, I'm for the Jim Crow," well then you sounded like a piece of shit. And then it really doesn't matter what kind of shitty argument you have, as long as you have some make-believe moral high ground.
And one of my lessons, spoiler alert, is whoever wins the terms of the debate eventually wins the politics. So when we started telling the school board, stop military racism, it actually influenced the chief of police in LA that I'll tell you about. This is a fast forward. But they called the gym Jim Crow. GYM Crow, get it? So as soon as they called the gym Jim Crow, in my opinion, that was the end. You won. Because who wants to say, "No, we must keep Jim Crow"? Right? So you see, and then it's not called Jim Crow. Well, as I tell people, Coca-Cola doesn't care. If you say, "I don't like Coca-Cola, I hate Coca-Cola," they say, just keep saying it. So the more you say, "I don't like Jim Crow, don't call it Jim Crow," that gym was dead. But it's not that easy. So first you win the battle of ideas, right? But now you have to win the actual power struggle. Think about the brilliance of rhetoric that was used during the '60s and how much we give all these young people say, "Hey, I invented the spoken word." Let me break it to you. We knew the spoken word.
What an incredibly brilliant yet stupid fucking strategy. And it's brilliant because it works. It works on people every day. I see it all the time. It's just like back then they would say, yeah, we don't want Jim Crow. And if you said, well, I want this Jim. You want Jim Crow? No, I just want this Jim. You want Jim Crow. And he even admits it here. He's just like, yeah, you just say it over and over again. And that's how you win. And that's how they win. And that's how they're winning. They say, oh, the police are systemically racist. And if you say you support the police, they say you support systemic racism? No, I just support the police. Systemic racism. You support systemic racism. You're a racist. That's what they've been doing forever. They just use race as like a weapon to beat you over the head with it until you submit because you don't want to be called a racist. No one wants to be called a fucking racist.
President Obama must end the 1033 program, which is a Defense Department program that gives tanks and weapons to the police department to suppress us.
This guy really needs the police defunded so he can have the communist revolution that his dick's been hard for since the 60s. He's been propping it up with Viagra since the 80s. He's been going into schools, brainwashing kids to be little communists. And nobody stops him because nobody even realizes who this fucking dude is. Think I'm kidding? You think he ain't doing that? You don't know who the fuck you're listening to because this ain't Alex Jones, bitch.
So that's what I teach at the Strategy Center. We're trying to change the world, whether we're on buses. Right now we're doing, Ashley Franklin's doing some amazing organizing in the high schools with young black kids.
You see, DWB only deals in facts. I only deal in what I can prove. I've had so many damn leftists tell me, you need to get educated. I know way more about this than your little stupid ass does. You're thinking that this dude ain't tied into Black Lives Matter? I'm about to fucking show you the rest. See, this dude, he's the guy operating the shadows. He's the fucking puppet master. He's got a YouTube channel with less subs and less views than my small channel. This Black Lives Matter shit is all part of his strategy for a communist revolution in America.
Shared as well, to be frank, is a concern about, in part because of the co-optation and the appropriation, that a more clear ideological structuring might be of some value here. But how do you respond to those kinds of, again, loving criticisms?
I think that the criticism is helpful. I also think that it might, I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
Yeah, she's a trained Marxist. But I'll give you one guess who trained her.
I'm wondering, Patrice, were you surprised by the enormous reaction as you began to develop the Black Lives Matter theme, and also talk about the strategy? You mentioned you had come out of the Strategy Center. What was the Strategy Center?
Well, I'm a trained organizer, and so I think sometimes people think that because Black Lives Matter is the biggest thing, that's the first thing I ever did, and it's not. I was trained knocking on doors, getting on buses and passing out flyers and getting people to join organizations. The Labor Community Strategy Center is my first political home. It's where I would be a part of what it's famous for, which is the Bus Riders Union.
Started by an old friend of mine.
Yes, Eric Mann, that's my mentor.
And that hashtag Black.
All you little anti-racist soldiers out there, you think that you're fighting for the oppressed people, but you're actually fighting to oppress every man, woman, and child in this country under Marxist communism. Because under communism, you are property of the state. They own you. You don't stand, you kneel in spoon-fed propaganda. And all this information is out there. It's like a fucking puzzle a 6-year-old could put together. They've raised billions of dollars, and it's all gone to a place called Thousand Currents. And the vice chair is Susan Rosenberg, who is another communist. Only she's even worse. She's a communist terrorist who was caught unloading 700 pounds of dynamite into a storage locker in New Jersey, and she's supposed to still be in prison, but Bill Clinton commuted her sentence and she walked out in 2001. See, Susan gets to administer all that money. She has $1 billion to use for her ends. And Eric Mann and Patrice Cullors, they all played you like fucking fiddles. All of you that have been fighting for it, you only fall into one of two categories. You either didn't know, and you're what the communists call useful idiots, little foot soldiers for a cause that you're too stupid to understand, or you did know, and you're a traitor to the United States of America, and a fucking commie. Thanks for watching. This has been DWB, and remember, don't be a fucking commie.